Hi, my name is Matthew Delo, and this is my mutual fund analysis project. So, the objective was to look across domestic mutual funds, international mutual funds, and sector mutual funds, and try and find a mutual fund that we liked and then one that we didn't like. So, getting right into it, for our domestic funds, all these funds are basically going to be from fidelity.com, and then I use Morningstar to analyze. But for the first fund that I liked that was good in the domestic sector um, was the Fidelity Large Cap Stock. It's a 4-star rating, um, no load, about a 0.67 expense ratio, below average fees, and a turnover of 40%. And if we look at our chart, we're actually outperforming the S&P 500 by a good margin. It's a high risk, but a high return. So if we're looking, our 10-year risk and return were high, and our 5-year and 3-year were average return to above average risk. Our management, Matthew Fruhan, is a portfolio with Fidelity, and he's been with the firm since 1995, and he's an equity research associate with an MBA, a BA, and an MA from Harvard. So let's show you the bad. A bad bad mutual fund in the domestic sector was our Fidelity Event-Driven Opportunities Fund. No load, a 1.12 expense ratio, that was fairly high. Average fee level, we don't like that. 89% turnover. And if we go look at our chart, we're actually underperforming as far as versus the S&P. It doesn't make sense to be averaging less than the S&P, especially when you have expenses plus fees built on top of that. So this isn't a fund that I would necessarily invest in. The other part about the fund is that it doesn't even have a track record longer than 3 years, and in that period it's had an average return to a below average risk. So for our managers, it's Arvind Navaratam. He's a portfolio manager, and he's got an MBA from Harvard and a bachelor's from Columbia. So the education really isn't a worry there. Let's take a look at our international sector. So for our good fund, I found the Fidelity International Capital Appreciation Fund. We got a no load, 1.12 expense ratio, above average fees, which we don't love, and a turnover of 178, which is high considering. But if we look at our performance, we're outperforming the international indexes by quite a bit of margin. So the foreign large growth and then the MSCI, we're outperforming. It's a high level risk fund, but also a high return. So our track record, our 3-year above average return for average risk, 5-year high return for an average risk, and then 10-year high return for high risk. For the fund manager, we got Sammy Samnagar, and he's been a portfolio manager with Fidelity since 1998. And as for a bad international fund, we got the Fidelity International Discovery Fund. We have a no load, a 0.94 expense ratio, average fees, and a 42% turnover, which to me seems kind of low given an international fund. But if we look compared to our Fidelity National Capital Appreciation Fund, which was completely outperforming these indexes, this fund is actually underperforming. So if we're looking at our risk, we're basically getting below average returns for an average amount of risk. And if you see here, Morningstar, from 3 to 10 years, we have a below average return for an average rating. So the fund manager is Will Kennedy. He also has been with Fidelity for quite some time, since 1994, and he's an analyst and manager. So next we're going to move to our sector funds. Chose 8 random sectors for this one, and just picked one that was good from and one that was bad from each. So for our good sector fund, we have the Fidelity Select Healthcare Fund. No load, 0.73 expense ratio, low fees, 75% turnover. This is looking pretty good so far. If we look at our performance of the fund compared to the health industry, also in the MSCI, which we noticed in the last one, we're outperforming both indexes. So that's what we want to see. We got average risk, but we got above average return. And looking at the over time, we got above average return for an average risk. So we're doing well. Their fund manager is Elward Yoon, and he's been with Fidelity since 2006. He's got a bachelor's from Brown, and he's also a research analyst and portfolio manager. And now for the bad sector. The bad one I found was the Fidelity Select Financial Services portfolio. We have no load, 0.77 expense ratio, low fee, and a 54% turnover. I wanted the financial services portfolio to do well, but it kind of is what it is right now. So if we look at our chart, we're underperforming some of the metrics that we were using before. We're underperforming the MSCI, and we're also underperforming the financial sector. So you don't like to see that. You could easily just get one of these two and outperform this fund. Over time, we have average return for a below average to average risk profile. And then for our management for this fund, it's Christopher Lee. He's been managing it since 2013. He's another portfolio manager at Fidelity, and he's a sector manager. He's kind of done semiconductors and everything. So in conclusion, out of the 8 stocks I picked from each category, you have your really good, you have your middle of the pack, and you have your really bad. But if we're going to pay our expense ratio and we're going to pay fees, we need a return that's better than the market. Otherwise, why don't we just buy the index fund that doesn't have fees and expenses? So that's really it. Thank you for your time, guys.